This is Chapter 5 of The Enormous Egg by Oliver Butterworth. Dr. Zimmer arrived while we were still staring at the thing in the nest. He jumped out of his car and came running out to us in the backyard. He was wearing a red bathrobe over his pajamas, and he looked pretty excited. He ran up to the nest and looked in. His eyes opened up wide, and he knelt down on the ground and stared and stared and stared. After a long while, he said softly, "That's it. By George, that's just what it is." Then he stared for another long time, and finally he shook his head and said, "It can't be true, but there it is." He got up off his knees and looked around at us. His eyes were just sparkling. He was so excited. He put his hand on my shoulder, and I could feel he was quivering. "And amazing things happened," he said, in a kind of whisper. "I don't know how to account for it. It must be some sort of freak biological mix-up that might happen once in about 1,000 years. "But what is it?" I asked. Dr. Zimmer turned and pointed a trembling finger at the nest. "Believe it or not, you people have hatched out a dinosaur." We just looked at him. "Sounds incredible, I know," he said, "and I can't explain it, but there it is. I've seen too many Triceratops skulls to be mistaken about this one." But how could it be a dinosaur?" Pop asked. "Goodness gracious," Mom spluttered. "And right here in our backyard, it doesn't seem hardly right. And on a Sunday, too." Cynthia was pretty interested by now and kept peeking into the nest and making faces. That's the way she did when Pop brought a bowl of frog's legs into the kitchen one time. I guess girls just naturally don't like crawly things too much. To tell the truth, I don't either, sometimes. But this thing that had just hatched out looked kind of cute to me. Maybe that was because I had taken care of the egg so long. I felt as if the little dinosaur was almost one of the family. We stood around for a long while looking at the strange new thing on the nest, trying to let the idea soak in that we had a dinosaur. After Dr. Zimmer calmed down a little, he and Pop tightened up the chicken wire to make sure the little animal wasn't going to crawl out. Dr. Zimmer watched the poor old hen for a time, and then he wondered if perhaps she ought not to be taken out before she went out of her mind. Pop figured that it might be a good idea, and he picked her up and put her outside the pen. She acted a little dazed at first, but pretty soon she followed the other hens and began scratching for worms like the rest of them. "I've never seen a surprised hen in my life," Dr. Zimmer said. Mom suddenly began to notice how we all looked. "Cynthia, you're still in your pajamas," she said. "You get right into the house and get dressed. Walt, you've only shaved half your face. My goodness, the neighbors will think we're crazy. And we haven't had breakfast yet. What am I thinking of? Dr. Zimmer, won't you stay and have breakfast with us?" Dr. Zimmer said, "Why, yes, thank you very much." And then he happened to look at his bathrobe. "But I'm not dressed myself." Oh, sorry, guys. Let me see. There we go. "Oh, that's right," Pop told him. "This is no time to worry about clothes. We always wear bathrobes when our dinosaurs hatch." Dr. Zimmer laughed, and we all went back into the house. Mom got a big breakfast, and we all tucked into the bacon and eggs and hot biscuits and honey as if we'd been starving. Afterwards, Dr. Zimmer leaned back and patted his stomach. "I haven't had a breakfast like this in years," he said. "Those biscuits are worth coming miles for, Miss Twitchell. You probably don't have a chance to eat a decent meal without being interrupted," Mom said to him. "A doctor's life must be terribly hard, with emergency calls all the time, day and night." Dr. Zimmer looked at her, sort of surprised. "You know," he said, I think you've got me in the wrong profession. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a paleontologist. My patients have all been dead for 50 million years or so." I saw him wink at Pop. Cynthia's mouth dropped open. 50 million, she said. "Say, what is a well, whatever it is you just said?" Dr. Zimmer looked at me. "Do you know, Nate?" "Well, no," I said. "Not exactly." I could hear Cynthia snicker at me. "A paleontologist is someone who is interested in very ancient life," Dr. Zimmer said. "He goes around trying to find old bones and fossil remains of plants and animals so he can know what kind of things lived long ago. Actually, I should call myself a paleozoologist because I'm particularly interested in animal life like dinosaurs, for example. That's why I was very anxious to see what came out of this egg of Nate's." "Well, I never," Mom said. "So that's why you thought that the egg might hatch out?" "I certainly hoped it would anyway," Dr. Zimmer said. "You see, all we've had to work on so far is fossils, just bones, teeth, footprints, and so forth. Naturally, we haven't been able to be sure about many things because up to today, nobody has ever seen a live dinosaur. As a matter of fact, no one was even sure that dinosaurs hatched out of eggs until Roy Chapman Andrews found some dinosaur eggs in the Gobi Desert in 1923. So you see, this dinosaur in your backyard is tremendously important, and scientists all over the world are going to be grateful to Nate and his family for taking care of such a valuable egg." Dr. Zimmer had been talking so much that he had forgotten about the biscuit he held in his hand. But now he broke it open and put a dab of butter on it. He looks around the kitchen and frowned a little. "This is such a nice, peaceful place, you know. But now the trouble begins. When the news gets around, the scientific world is going to go crazy. I'm afraid it may change things quite a bit around here. Science has done an enormous amount of good for the human race, but it rarely makes things any more peaceful. When I send a telegram to my colleagues at the National Museum saying that I have seen a live Triceratops, they're going to take the first plane out of Washington. If they believe me, that is. Then there will be an official announcement to the press, and right after that, there will be crowds of scientists and other inquisitive people from all over, and there will be a big hullabaloo. It will make your quiet little backyard look like Union Station. People will be coming and going and stepping in your flower beds and leaving cigarette wrappers all around. I hate to upset your lives here that way." That is where I am going to stop, and we will continue later on.